Welcome to another episode of GTN Coach's Corner. On today's episode, a viewer asks what they should do when they change into shorter triathlons. Another viewer asks if race day wheels are actually worth it. Someone else is wondering why their heart rate at their threshold is changing. And one guy, as a vegan, is wondering how to lose body fat. So let's get into your questions. Lots to discuss in today's episode. And remember, we could be answering your questions. All you have to do is use that hashtag GTN Coach's Corner. Leave your comments in the comment section down below this video or below any of GTN's videos. We'll pick that up and we could be answering your question on next week's episode. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can not miss any of GTN's videos. Let's get to today's questions. Eric Serafino asks, hashtag GTN Coach's Corner. I've done both longer and shorter distance races, but recently I've been focusing more on the sprint distance triathlons and I really want to maximize how fast I can go and just maybe get a podium. How can the training plans differ from the shorter races relative to the longer races? Does the periodization change a bit? Does the 80-20 rule skew more like 60-40? Is the winter aerobic base even necessary? Should I be doing more tempos or interval sessions? Does a pre-race taper look different? What's the longest I should be going for my long bike rides? Thanks, I love the content. Wow, so many questions. Okay, well, the quick answer is no. It doesn't actually change that much. The 80-20 rule that you talk of, 80% low aerobic stuff and 20% higher intensity stuff, doesn't actually change very much. Essentially, triathlon is still aerobic, even a sprint distance triathlon. It's going to take roughly an hour, maybe more, and anything more than about 6 or 7, 8 minutes is aerobic in nature. So a sprint distance triathlon is still very much aerobic. It may be significantly faster than your Olympic distance or your half Ironman, but it's still aerobic. And so you need to still be working those aerobic zones. You need to still be doing that lower intensity stuff and working your aerobic base. The difference will come in a little bit in that 20%, the higher intensity stuff, whereas for Olympic distance or half Ironman, you're going to do a lot of stuff in that what they call the sweet spot, just below your threshold training, because you want to try and push that threshold up and sustain that just below threshold for as long as possible. Whereas with the sprint distance, because it's so short, you can actually afford on race day to be slightly above threshold for some of your race. So you need to obviously train slightly above threshold more. And that means that the higher intensity stuff, that 20% to your program that's higher intensity, can be slightly higher intensity. Your intervals can be a bit shorter. You can maybe do more of those intervals at a higher intensity, but they can be shorter intervals. Rather than trying to sustain a specific power, you're more trying to push up the power you can hold for that sprint distance, for the shorter distance. And as for your taper, your volume is lower, so therefore your taper can be shorter. You're not tapering from such a high volume. If you are doing your sprint distance training, even if you've got the 80-20 balance the same, you may do lower total volume so that you can do that higher intensity at a higher intensity. But your taper, because you've done lower volume, can be shorter. You will essentially recover from a lower volume quicker. The one difference with that though is that for a sprint distance, you kind of want to be fresher than you would be for an Olympic distance or a half Ironman. And so you need to make sure that you've tapered for long enough that you get into that start line as fresh as possible and ready to really fire on all cylinders. A caveat to that though is that you also want to be sharp, which means you don't want to just be resting for that whole taper and losing all that sharpness. You need to do some race pace stuff right up until race day, even if it's just short little efforts to make sure your muscles are firing and you're feeling good for race day. I hope that answers most of your questions. Quite a lot of questions to unpack in that one. Next question, Kerry Hicks. I bought a new bike because mine was stolen in December last year. Oh, sorry to hear your bike was stolen. That always sucks. I bought a nice new carbon frame, but had to save money somewhere, so I didn't get the nicer wheel set. I have a couple of races coming up, and I was wondering if you think it's worth it to rent race day wheels. Our local bike shop can do a set of Aerodisc wheel set for $115 US. Should I get them? Well, race day wheels or race wheels will definitely make a difference. How much of a difference depends on a lot of factors. I'm going to run into all the factors now, but don't believe all the manufacturers' claims that it's going to save you minutes for every 40 kilometers you do. It's going to save you a little bit. One of the things that they are going to save is that they are aerodynamic and they are lighter. So you will be faster, no doubt. But depending on your body position, which is the main aerodynamic drag, they may not make that much difference. Your course also may not make that much difference. If it's not a particularly hilly course, saving that weight's not going to make much difference, because once your wheels are rolling, they're rolling even if they weigh more. So you really do need to weigh it up. One thing I will say though, that race day wheels are one of the few things on your bike that you can upgrade literally just for race day. Anything else that you change, a new frame, a new helmet, a new bike position, is going to take some getting used to. You're basically going to have to do it way ahead of the race. Whereas race day wheels, you can literally put them on a race day. There's nothing to get used to. They are just free speed. You just immediately faster. How much faster though? Very much depends on a lot of factors and whether it's worth it. Now, is that money worth it? That's up to you. Only you can answer that. If you're racing for an age group podium, maybe a Kona slot, then they probably are going to be worth it. There's few seconds, maybe a minute or so you save on the bike leg might make all the difference. There's obviously also the psychological factor you need to factor into that. In that, race day wheels feel better. They just feel more comfortable. They feel faster. You feel better, and when you feel better, you go faster. So they may be worth it if you are going for an age group podium, but you can still enjoy your triathlon and have a good day. It literally are talking about a few seconds to a minute or a few minutes at most that you save in here. So weigh up the cost versus the gains. Next question, Alexander Levin says, hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. Is it normal to lose 8 beats per minute off your threshold and maximum heart rate within a year? Last year I had a threshold dialed at 158 beats per minute with a 530 run pace and a 240 watt on the bike. After my 70.3 I took it easy, and now after 2 months of good training I tested my threshold. My heart rate decreased to 151 beats per minute. While the speed and effort is definitely the same, the heart rate is significantly down. 8 beats per minute seems a bit much in such a short time. Well, firstly, maintain a lower heart rate for the same speed as you are, 8 beats lower, is a good thing. That's exactly what you want. That looks like training is working. Your experience, your training for the 70.3, then resting, and then 2 months of solid training has meant that your threshold is higher, essentially. The speed you maintain, if you maintain the same speed, you're essentially maintaining the same speed for a lower heart rate, which means you can probably go back up to the 158 and hold a higher power for your threshold, which is a great thing. That's exactly what you want the training to do. It's what you're training for. Your threshold is not fixed. Your threshold does not stay where it is. Throughout the season, as you get fitter and fitter, your threshold will change. You will either be able to maintain that threshold power at a low heart rate, or you'll be able to increase the power to maintain the same heart rate. That's what you're training for. The higher you can get your threshold, the higher you can sustain your threshold, the better. That is what your training is for. Your threshold does move. It's not fixed. On the flip side, the other thing you said is that your maximum heart rate is decreased, and I doubt that's the case. Your maximum heart rate will not really change. It can change ever so slightly as you are better at recruiting muscles and pushing yourself to your limits, but essentially your maximum heart rate is a fixed thing. So I doubt that's changed. You may be just not measuring your maximum heart rate. It's not going to change. It's kind of ingrained in your genetics how fast your heart goes, what your maximum heart rate is. That old 220 minus age, though, is not very accurate. So if your maximum heart rate is seen a significant difference, maybe you need to head to your doctor. But yeah, your maximum heart rate is not going to change. Your threshold heart rate, however, will change, and that's a good thing if it's coming down. You want your heart rate at threshold to decrease. Essentially, your threshold's going up. One more question, that's from Ryan Bell. Hi guys, I have a question regarding nutrition. I'm on a quest to cut my body fat percentage to improve my speed and reduce the impact on my body when running. To do this, I'm running a calorie deficit, which I'm keeping a close eye on, but I'm concerned I may lose muscle mass instead of body fat as I follow a mostly vegan diet. I've read it can be a good idea to take a post-workout shake. Food, is this a good idea? Do you have any other tips towards cutting body fat? Thanks so much. To start with, a post-workout shake or food is always a good idea. Essentially, there's a window, a glycogen loading window that happens almost immediately after your session and lasts up to 90 minutes or so. And if you get something in that window, your body will replace that glycogen in your muscles very quickly. If you miss that window and you eat it later on, your body will still recover and replace that glycogen. It'll just take significantly longer. So it's always a good idea to take something immediately when you finish training to help you recover and make sure that you're ready for your next training session. Otherwise, you're just prolonging the recovery. that doesn't really make much difference to your overall calorie deficit and your body weight loss. Obviously, you need to build in the calories you take immediately after your post-workout shake to make sure you are still in a calorie deficit. Having a calorie deficit is the only way to lose weight and cut your body fat percentage, and it sounds like you're doing a good job of that. A slight calorie deficit that you monitor well is exactly the way to do it. It's sustainable and you can keep it going. A major calorie deficit is a problem. As for muscle wasting, it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. Essentially, that would only happen if you're going into a starvation state, and essentially your body cannot produce any energy from your fat stores or your glycogen stores, and your body has to break down proteins in order to survive, essentially. And I highly doubt you're going into that starvation state. If you're maintaining a decent calorie deficit but nothing too significant, you'll be absolutely fine. Your body will choose to use the fat in your body long before it decides to break down muscles and proteins in order to survive. However, if you're not taking in any proteins in your diet, that will be an issue. So you need to be aware of this, especially as a vegan. It's not difficult, but it's slightly more difficult for a vegan to take in enough protein versus someone who's eating meat regularly. Obviously, meat is a very easy source of protein, but there are vegan options out there, so you can Google them. Make sure you're getting them in. You want to aim for about 30% of your total calories in protein. So if you can do that as a vegan, you're looking at things that have high protein. There's tofu, there's beans, there's various other things that have lots of protein in them. And as long as you get enough of that, you'll never have to worry about muscle wasting. You will just slowly lose that fat weight. So good luck with that. I hope that answers your question. If you guys have questions, remember, like I said at the beginning, in the comment section down below, use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner, and we could be answering your question next week on GTN Coaches Corner. Thanks for watching.